have to do it on both systems. So we are live now. I'm going to make us live on Instagram.
All right.
And good evening, everyone. This is Corey Minor Smith with Mental Wealth Wednesday. We have a wonderful guest. I can't wait to introduce her to you all. But first, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge July. We are through July, and I really appreciate Miss Vance-Penchion's flexibility in rescheduling to this week because I was not feeling well. But I want to acknowledge the month of July. It is BB Moore Campbell National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And with part of the resolution, that was a bipartisan resolution that was passed in 2008, designating July in her honor and memory. One of the components of that resolution addressed the need to increase awareness regarding mental health conditions and issues, severe mental illness in minority communities. And so we have a guest today who is ready to share her story to do just that, help to increase awareness and to bring life to this conversation about those who have mental health conditions and very positive, fruitful, and productive lives. So I just wanted to take a moment to honor BB Moore Campbell and all of her advocacy and her efforts to increase awareness and to reduce stigma. So, as we continue these conversations, we are making an impact because it normalizes the conversations and it humanizes those who are living with mental health conditions. It is unfortunate that the most minute thing can cause someone to be subject to bullying, to be subject to criticism, to be ostracized in the community. And we want to help people to have vibrant lives, productive lives. And so, with that, I would like to thank Miss Cecilie Vance-Penchion for joining us today. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, and thank you for having me. This is quite
Wonderful.
exciting.
I am excited to have you. We've been talking on and off since the time we
Yes,
met. I feel it's so important for you to have the opportunity to share your story, and I don't want to hold back from you starting in with this conversation. But just introducing you to the community, some of the posts indicated that you kind of held your lived experience kind of close to the vest and did not openly share it, but now you're ready to share. You've
yes,
worked for 40 years, which was very impressive for the same company,
yes.
earning a bachelor's and a master's degree. And through that, you also have your lived experience with mental health conditions. And I just would like to turn it over to you to just give us a snippet, your overall why you decided to join today.
Okay. This is quite an event for me. I don't have the opportunity to speak that often about my mental health journey. It started when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and this was in the early 90s. And we weren't speaking about mental health as we are today. It was still kind of in the dark, kind of hidden. No one really came out and advocated about it that I was aware of. My father, who was my best friend, died by suicide in 1990. I was struggling with depression, although I didn't know that's what it was. I just knew that there were days I did not want to get out of the bed. There were days when the covers were my best friend. I unfortunately had a firearm that, if I could be honest, actually talked to me to tell me things were not going to get any better, that I was going to feel this way for the rest of my life. So why not check out now and be with my dad? So there were a number of challenges that I had to work myself through. And I did so with the help of my family. They knew that I was struggling. I was able to share with them. And it came about again after my dad's death when my mother and my brother and I went to counseling together. And I was asked the question, do anyone feel like committing suicide? And I have kept it in my grasp so tightly. I did not want to share that bit of information, but the Lord tapped me on my shoulder and said, you need to speak up now. And I did. And I said, yes, I do have those feelings. And we got into counseling right away. This was my parents lived in Detroit. I live in Maryland. So when I got back to Maryland, I live right outside of DC. I started seeing a therapist who was in DC, and it was very difficult. Therapy is not a lot of fun. It is work that has to be done, but it is so rewarding when you come out on the other side of it. It is a challenge to start it, but if you are going through the challenges that occur with mental health, you know that on the other side there is life. We have to take it out of the dark and we have to bring it into the light. And so I had the opportunity to work with a fabulous therapist, a psychiatrist whose name was Dr. Rankin out of DC. She helped me see that there was a word for what I was going through. At the time I thought I was all alone, that nobody would understand, that I was having these feelings, that I could not articulate those feelings so that they made sense. Because I was one I was living on my own. I had my own house, my own car, my own job. And I kept thinking, how in the world can I feel depressed when I have so many outward things going for me? There's no way I could understand that, nor could I get anyone else to understand it. So I thought. But she was able to give it a voice. She was able to give it feeling. And she made me see that I was not alone, that this was something that occurred in a number of people, but we had a tendency to keep it secret. And the more we kept it secret, the harder it was to come out of that dark space. So she helped me come out of that space. She did. My family did. And then my religion did. And at the time, if I can share with you, at the time that I was going through these mental health issues, I was an atheist. I did not believe. And I had spoke on being an atheist for a number of years. And it was just by his grace that he surrounded me with people who were able to talk to me about the goodness the Lord can bring and what he's able to do for you if you allow yourself to be open to his conversations. And so between my therapist, my family, and my religion, I was able to step out of the dark into the light. I still have drama. So don't think that drama has not disappeared from my life. There is still those times when I say, I just don't feel it right now. But the idea of that is to be able to put yourself in a place where you know you'll get better. Before, I would sit in the dark and it would just consume me. That feeling of I'm not ever going to get through this would be so overpowering that I did feel as though I could take my life. But when I have those feelings, therapy, religion, and my family have taught me that I need to move out of that space into another space. And it may mean I have to actually get up physically, move to another room, move to another setting, get in my car, go for a drive. I have to do something positive rather than just staying in that dark space and letting it consume me. So I always will challenge people who are feeling as though there are things they cannot step around. Know that you can actually put on your sneakers and walk out of that space into a brand new light. It is helpful, so very helpful, to have someone in your corner, that therapist, that psychiatrist, that psychologist, that social worker, somebody who is sitting with you, giving you tools and ideas on how to get past the space that you're in so that you're able to live a more fulfilling life. So that's my journey. I'm still on it.
Mm-hmm.
I still go through days. I still see a therapist. And this has been since the 90s that I have seen therapists. It has not always been the same therapist because I've moved through my life, but I have always had someone that I can go to say, all right, I'm feeling this way today, or I felt that way last week, and this is what I did to combat it. I will probably be on medication for the rest of my life. I've come to terms with that. That was a hard pill to swallow when I first started because I was one of those who did not want to take medication. But I came to realize that as someone who suffers from manic depression or bipolar, there is a chemical imbalance in the brain so that you need something to
Mm-hmm.
counteract that. Nobody's fault. It just is the way it is. Just like someone who has, unfortunately, diabetes or a heart condition, they're on medication and they have to take that medication every day to stay well. Well, that's what I do every day to stay well. I stay on my meds. Don't want to come off of them because to do that would be paramount to me having an episode, and I don't want that. I want to stay healthy. I want to stay in this wonderful life that I have created for myself with the help of all of those people that are in my village that have
Mm-hmm.
helped me come through this to a good place in my life. I really did not think I would get to a good space when I was going through the depression very heavily in the 90s and the early 2000s, but we have come out on the other side. And so we take what we have learned and we use that to help with those times when things do get a little iffy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's me.
Well, that is wonderful. And that's a wonderful journey. Thank you for being open and honest, and most importantly, vulnerable in
Yes.
sharing your journey, because we have to have these honest conversations so
Yes.
that people can understand how they feel. Doesn't have to be negative, that there is support available, ways to tap into resources, and
Absolutely.
even maybe change your mind and what you believe in. As you
Absolutely.
indicated, you were once an atheist and then
Yes.
you found a connection with God and religion
Yes.
to help you on your journey. But
Yes.
you are a mother, you are a wife,
Yes.
and you worked for 40 years with,
Yes. I
and
did.
congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you. It is a year last month, last July.
Yeah.
I retired after 40. I worked with FedEx and I was a instructor, so I had classes that I taught every day. It was quite, I really can't believe I put 40 in, but they were there during the bad times because
Yeah.
that depression, manic depressive state started when I was with FedEx. And so I had to kind of balance out my behavior with my job, with my school. Everything was kind of working around itself together. And there were times when I felt so overwhelmed. And
Mm,
then the depression started, and I figured I would never get over this. But I did with the help of my village.
mm,
So, yes, I put in those 40. It is a wonderful time right now to be retired because when I was working, I live in Maryland, but I worked for a time in DC, and I would have to get up at 4 in the morning
oh, God.
to make it to the job. And I tell you, not having to get up at 4 in the morning anymore is such a blessing. I love it. I love it. I can kind of get up when I feel like it and go to bed when I feel like it and not worry about grading papers or who needs to be off that day and can't make it to class. I don't have to worry about any of that anymore.
Mm.
So I'm quite pleased.
Well, a lot of people are concerned about having symptoms, disclosing that they have symptoms, or
Yes.
even trying to address their symptoms at work, or whether they should
Yes.
disclose it to HR, human
Yes.
resources, or some other confidant at work. What do you say to those people? I mean,
Yeah.
we know you had your family, but
Yeah.
40 years with a company, how did you manage
I
that?
I was very fortunate in that FedEx allows you, it did at the time, and I'm not sure if it still does, but it allowed you to move around to different cities, different states, different locations. And I took advantage of that. So I was in 5 or 6 different cities and states
Mhm.
working for FedEx, going through the mental health issue.
Mm,
When the mental health issue, when my dad died, I was in DC and I happened to have moved there about 7 or 8 months before from Boston. I had just moved to DC. So this was a new experience in my living conditions, a new experience at my job. I had a whole new set of a whole new crew, a whole new set of pupils, a whole new set of management team, a whole new staff. And then I get hit with your dad died by suicide, and oh my God, that's what I wanted to do. He beat me to it. I'm
mm,
I'm I'm so upset, not only at the fact that my dad is gone, but that he went out this way and we never talked about it.
mm,
My dad and I were one who could talk about anything. But the one thing we did not talk about, and we came to find out later that he was diagnosed as a manic depressive, was that we were having these difficulties. And
mm,
so we didn't talk about it. I just so happened to be in DC during this time. I explained to my manager that I was having some issues that needed to be addressed. And I had a manager who was wonderful, who told me, in essence, to do what I needed to do, to take the
mhm,
time I needed to take to get well. Now, I realize not everyone may be in that
yeah.
situation. It was so helpful to hear her say, I need you to get well. So if it means that you have to duck out of here for a couple of hours or a day to bring yourself back to where you need to be healthy, then that's what I'm allowing you to do. I'm giving you your permission
Mm,
to step out and get better. And so it makes a big difference when you have someone in your life for a job or a career that allows you the space that you need to get in touch with yourself, to bring your mental health feelings to the forefront so that you can deal with them. It was very helpful. But I know that it is not necessarily the same thing that can happen with other people. But I do say we do need to share and not keep things so close to the vest, so hidden that we don't have someone in our life who can help us move through this.
Mm.
We need that person or that group of people that help us move through the feelings of isolation, the loneliness, the feelings of I want to do harm to myself. And that to me is we've heard so many people have checked out, and it's unfortunate because there is help that is available. We just have to tap into it.
Mm.
So it is helpful if you have someone at your job that is there for you and gives you that permission to check out every now and then to go get your help.
You mentioned that your dad died before
Yes,
you had a chance to die in the same way.
yes. That
What was the greatest challenge you have faced prior to your father's death that you feel may have led you to feel that way?
I I I honestly don't know what I was so sad about. It just seemed like it was so consuming that there were days when I would pretend
Mm.
my phone would ring over the weekend and I would never answer it. Now, this was before cell phones and pagers and all electronics we have today. The phone would ring. I would just let it ring. The next time I connected with people, they would think that I was just out in the world having a good time, when in actuality, I was at home with the covers over my head, with the gun in my hand,
Mm.
talking to myself about what are you going to do? We, it, there wasn't anything in particular. And I think that's what's so scary about things to me is that there wasn't one thing that I was going through. It wasn't like I lost a job or got a bad grade or something happened in the family. There was nothing like that. It was just I would get this feeling that overtook me to the point that I could not function, where
Mm.
I just wanted to crawl up somewhere. I'd have to fight myself every day to get to work. I'd have to fight myself every day to not do something to myself. What, and it bothers me still to this day, is that I did not share those feelings with my father, because I think had I shared them with him, he possibly could have shared his feelings with me,
Mm.
and we both could have then taken it to the next step, realizing that we needed to get help. My father was born in the 30s, black man born in the early 30s. When he was going through his depression, that wasn't something you were supposed to deal with. You were
Mm.
supposed to take care of your family. And having sad thoughts counteracted the positive stuff you were supposed to be doing for your family. And so he attempted to go to see a shrink. They prescribed for him medication. We didn't know any of this until after his death, that
Mm.
he was seeing someone. But as we talked to his therapist, the therapist said he just stopped coming. And then we found the medication, and he had stopped taking the medication. And so he must have recognized that there was something going on But then he stopped all of the helpful measures that would have gotten him to the other side. We didn't realize that. I had no clue that my dad was suffering depression, because when I spoke with my dad, and I spoke with him every day, every other day, he was just wonderful. He was the
Mhm.
same old jokester. How you doing? What's happening? This is where you need to be. This is what you need to do. If you don't like that guy you dating, get rid of him. Let's get somebody else. That was his rhythm. He was like that. And it caught us so off guard, because he never gave an indication that there was something wrong. So that part of it just floored me. I didn't I couldn't wrap myself around the fact that we never spoke on something that was so important, so detrimental, until after the fact. And I like to think that his suicide probably saved me from mine,
Mhm.
because I then got the help that I needed to get because of him.
Well, that is definitely something to just take a moment and soak
Mm,
in.
mm,
It's
yeah.
a lot, but it is important that we have these types of conversations with our families.
Yes.
Whether it's something that you talk about at Thanksgiving dinner or just in general,
Mm-hmm.
checking in with someone,
Mm-hmm.
having that be a part of an available topic with family. We can't just assume
Right.
that everybody is okay or disregard the fact when someone is showing that they're not okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate you sharing that. And from your journey, there's so many important pieces and parts of your story. But what do you recommend to family members who want to be supportive of their loved ones who may be living with mental health conditions, or
Mm-hmm.
the individual who, hearing your story today, recognizes some of the same or similar thoughts, feelings, symptoms
Mm-hmm.
that may be going on in their lives? What
Mm-hmm.
would you say to family members who want to be supportive? And what would you say to individuals who may be experiencing the same things you've experienced?
To family members, and it may be difficult, but you have to step to them,
Mhm.
because the alternative is for them to do something that would be detrimental to their health or their life. So we have to kind of bite the bullet and step up and say, is there something that we need to talk about? Is there something going on that you're not feeling 100% about? What can I do to help? What kind of resources can we find together? And be that conduit who says, let me be that person who you come to. Let me be the one who is able to understand that not every day or every person is going to feel like clicking their heels all the time. There are going to be days when it gets a little tough.
Right.
I'm not I'm okay with that. Let me be the person who you connect with. And that person who needs some kind of intervention, let's not be afraid to recognize when that is the case. And let's not be afraid to then go and search for that group or that person who can help you, because the alternative is so dark.
Mm.
You end up not having a good place to be in, and that is when we do the ultimate, and we don't want to do that. We
Right.
don't want to do that. We want to stay within this circle. We don't want to check out because that is so final. And
Mm,
it just takes maybe another half a day to get you to another place. Like I said, it may mean you have to put sneakers on and go somewhere else. But the alternative is that you don't move from that place and bad things happen. So we need to recognize when there are those family members who may be going through something and let them know that this is a safe place. I'm a safe place to go to.
mm,
Let's look together at what we can do to get you to that professional help, because sometimes just talking to Aunt May May is not going to get it. You
right.
sometimes need a professional who has gone through that training to help give you the tools and the insight that is needed to get to the other side. Now,
Mm,
I'm not discounting Aunt May May. That she may be a great person, but sometimes it is beneficial for me to speak with someone outside of my family where I can let my hair down and talk about things that may be uncomfortable for a family member to hear, where a
right.
therapist would be open to, because it is something that needs to come out to help you.
Hmm.
So let's not be afraid of saying, and we have a tendency, Black folk have a tendency to say, I don't need help.
Mm.
Well, yeah, we do. We do. It I'm sorry, but you do.
Nothing to
And
be
when
sorry about. This is not, mental health conditions go
yes,
beyond race, gender, age, national origin, religion, if I didn't already say that, but
it that's
it doesn't
everybody.
discriminate. It's a
Right.
365 global issue, I often say. So
Yes.
it's important for us to realize, we're not different as
Yes.
Black people in America or in the diaspora. All people, if you have a
Yes.
brain, you may be subject and can
You
be
may
subject
be
to mental
subject.
health
That's
conditions.
right.
Yes.
Right. And that's what I think we need to hear
Hmm.
someone say to us is, we need help just like anybody else does. There are those who are in the profession to help, to not pass judgment, but to help you get to another place so that you're able to step out into the sunshine. And the sunshine is so beautiful when you don't have that overwhelming feeling of dread.
Mm,
The sunshine on your face when you know I'm getting to a good place. I may not be there just yet, but I'm on the road to getting to that good place.
mm.
It makes the difference. It makes a
Yeah.
difference.
Sounds like this would be a great collaborative partnership, or being
Yes.
um, willing to have someone help you and willing to ask for help, and for family members that they are willing to help, and not just
Yes.
if somebody comes to you, but being an active um,
Yes.
person in
Person
someone
that
else's
goes.
lives. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
mentioned earlier that after your father died, you, your mother, and your brother went to
Yes.
counseling.
Yes.
What led you all to go to counseling, and did you all go together?
We did. We have a very good friend of ours who is a he's in Detroit. My brother went to school with him. He is a psychologist, a child psychologist.
Mhm.
And he suggested maybe before you all split up, because my mom and dad were in Detroit, I was in Maryland, and my brother was in New York at the time. He suggested maybe before you split, the three of you go in for family counseling. and
Mm,
just talk about what you're feeling, how you have internalized this, what is going through your head. And so he introduced us to a shrink that he knew that worked with families going through grief.
mm,
And it was, I, at first I was just, no, I don't want to go. I don't. But my mom said, we're going. And well, that was the end of that. We going. And so we did. And it saved my life because she really got into tell me how you're feeling, tell me what you're thinking, how are you going to process this act
mm,
that has happened. She really started giving us some things to think about. Nobody's fault. It is what it is. We're going to get through this. And then she asked that question, who has thought about suicide? And she started with my mom and then my brother. They both said no, never. And I said yes. And my mother started crying.
mm,
Brother started crying. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done? What have
mm.
I done? And she said that this is a place to start. This is a good place to start. Because without you being honest, I can see you going back home and doing something that would be detrimental to you. And so I applaud you for being honest. Now the work begins
Yeah.
because when you get back to DC, I need you to go see this person. And she gave me the name of the therapist that she wanted me to see. And she made me promise. And I'm big on promises. She made me promise that I would see this person. And I said, with my mom and my brother there, who I am living for, yes, I'll see them. And it became important because for a long time, I was seeing that therapist and I was telling her, I really want to check out. I'm only here because mom and Courtney are too important to me and it's too close to my dad dying. So I'm only here for them. And
Mm,
we would play off of that. Okay, well, if you're only here for them, promise you stay for them.
mm,
At some point, we'll get to where we say, I'm staying for myself.
mm.
But if that's not good for you right now, let's just say, I'm here for mom and for Courtney. I'm
That
not
is
checking
so
out.
powerful. That is so
Mm,
powerful. How
mm.
how how did you get to want to do it for yourself? I like feel that so much, but how did you get to that?
It 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 didn't happen. Whoo, it took a minute because it was so I was seeing the therapist. It started out where I was seeing the therapist 3 times a week, and that was rough. But she made me. I had to sign a contract with her. Oh, she was slick. This shrink was. She was a slickster. She was slick. She made me promise, and then I had to sign a contract. She said, "You're in business. You know what a contract is. So sign this contract that you'll be back in my space on Wednesday at 2 o'clock." And I'd have to sign it. And in the beginning, it was hard because I am one who keeps promises, and it
Mm,
was and I was one who could lie my way out of anything. When somebody said, "Can you come to my party?" Well, when I was in the deep throes of a depression, I would not go, but I would come up with a lie as to why I couldn't make it rather than just say I was depressed and didn't feel like going. And
mm,
so she made me sign these contracts that I would come to therapy on a given day at a given time. And so we did that for quite a while. I was at a business meeting once in New Hampshire, and I ended up, there was a set of circumstances. My manager thought that I was going through the trouble because my lights were all off and there was a knife sitting out on the counter. She called the police. The police came. Uh, they took me to the emergency room, and there was a shrink that was there. And she and I had a conversation, and I told her the drama that I was going through. And she said, I really want to commit you. And I broke down crying. I said, oh my God, you cannot commit me. I cannot stay in a psych ward. And she said, the only way I'll let you go and not involuntarily commit you is if you call your mother right now and tell her what is going on. Now, it's like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. My mother's in Detroit. She had no idea that this had happened. So I called and she told me how much she loved me and started crying. And I thought, oh my God, I got to get better. I just got to get better. And at some point during that process, I realized that I got to do this for me. I cannot just keep putting it off on mom and Courtney. I got to do this for me. I got to get stronger. And the strength has to come from from inside with the help of my village. And that's when I recognized I needed the Lord's help as well to say it's okay when you are not feeling it, but not to act on that, to do something to get you out of that rhythm. And so when I came out of that hospital and went back to my hotel room, I did make a commitment that I would begin seeing the light for me, not just for my mom and my brother.
So you made a
That's
contract with yourself.
yes. And I
And a
I
promise to yourself.
I did. And the promise was I would get better for me and that I would look at going to church and actually staying there. Because what I had a tendency to do was I'd go sit in the back, and if it got too funky, I would leave. I wanted to then stay to at least hear the message of the pastor. And I began to see, oh, he's speaking to me. Those are that's my rhythm. That's my life. That's what I do, or that's how I feel. And it became a joy for me to sit in church. I actually moved up to the middle, not just sitting in the back. I moved to the middle. And then at some point I was even closer. So I began to grow in my faith, and it has become just a part of who I am. That, the therapy, and my village.
That is beautiful. So
Yeah.
it sounds like some very, very important parts of your journey, your family,
Mm-hmm.
now your church. I'll slash that with beliefs,
Yes.
your therapy and
Yeah.
medication,
Yes.
and just overall, we hear a lot about self care.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to know how you incorporate self care in nurturing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
keeping yourself in pace in this race of life that we live.
Yes.
Even though you're retired now and don't have that 9 to 5 element to your life anymore, what do you do to nurture yourself and to just bring peace for yourself on a
Mm-hmm.
daily basis? and something that you think would be helpful for others who
Mhm.
are trying to determine next steps in their journey?
Well, you're right. No more 9 to 5, but I've gone back to school. So
Oh,
I'm taking law classes.
oh,
And
okay.
yes, yes. And I just added a mental health degree to my program. So
Wow.
I'm going to concentrate not just on the law, but on courses that will get me to a mental health degree. So psychology and mental health awareness and sociology. And so all of these ology classes I'm going to take along with
Technology.
all of those classes, along with the law classes. So I'm doing that. I also try to work out every day
Mm,
just to keep my body moving. That
yeah.
because that's a rhythm. I think it's so important that you have a rhythm in your life, that you know from this time to this time you're going to be doing this, and that from this time to this time you're going to be doing that, and then maybe you have a free period of time where you're able to sit, watch TV, read a book, listen to music, chill out with the family. I have a wonderful husband and a wonderful son who give me my space when I need it,
Mm.
who allow me to be stupid when I feel like it, that get out of my way, including the dog. So he is part of the group, he's part
Yeah.
of the family. So I find it beneficial if I'm able to keep being active. And it may mean studying, putting on some sneakers, going to the gym, putting on some music, reading my books, something that keeps me occupied. Because it seems like if I'm not occupied, then dark thoughts will infiltrate my brain
Mm,
and cause me to start thinking bad, destructive thoughts. And so I try to keep my mind filled with positive stuff. I'm on the phone with my family. I am communicating with hubby and my son. We are all connected, going places, doing things, traveling, um, just staying within each other's realm so that we're able to see when things are not looking like they
mm,
should, when
yeah.
things are a little off kilter.
Hmm.
We know we need to jump in and maybe click something to say, how you feeling? How you doing? What's going on? You don't look like yourself today. You didn't work out today. You all right?
Hmm.
The questions get asked, and I have committed to myself to answering honestly.
Mm,
And that to me is a big thing, to
yes.
be honest with my family, but even more importantly, to be honest with myself
Mm,
about what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling, and where I'm going with my thoughts.
hmm.
Hmm.
I really, really appreciate that. It's important for us to have like specific things that we can
Yes.
easily implement in our lives and know that it's not out of reach. Sometimes when you hear self care, you may think of going to the spa or traveling
Hmm.
to some distant land
Place. Yes.
internationally. Like you have to go lay out on the beach
Yes.
um, in Europe somewhere in Spain.
Right.
But there are simple things that we can
To
add
do
to our
here.
lives and make sure that we
Hmm.
have included in our daily lives, more
Hmm.
importantly, to help us to navigate the life stressors.
The
Because,
life stressors.
whether you have a mental health condition, severe mental illness, need medication or not, life is hard.
It happens.
It's hard out here in these streets,
It's
as I've
coming
heard it
at you.
say.
It's
And
coming
it's important for us to know that it's okay not to be okay.
okay.
And
Yes.
I just want to share before we close some resources just based on the
Yes.
subject matters that we've discussed today. We've talked about dying by suicide, and that is something that is real, and it is real in the Black community as well.
Yes.
It is real
It's for
amongst human
real.
beings, and it's
It's
important
for
for us to
real.
understand that there are resources that are available to help
Available.
people who are living with thoughts, having suicidal ideations. So,
Yes.
with that, I want to share 988. If you haven't heard of 988
Right.
before, we've talked about it on this program before in prior episodes, but 988 is the number that you can call. As you heard, Miss Vance-Penchion mentioned today, the police were called and she was taken to the emergency room. Well, you don't have to call the police. You can
No.
call 988 if you know someone or you yourself are experiencing a mental health crisis or a substance use crisis. So please know that you can call 988. And I encourage you to look it up and find out more about 988 and share it with your networks because it's an important resource to know about. Also, you heard in terms of dying by suicide. Again, I said that that is real, but in the event you have someone in your life who dies by suicide or you experience some other type of loss, I recommend a book to you. It's a book and a program that I myself completed when I was having challenges in my life, and it's called the Grief Recovery Handbook, and it's by Russell Friedman and John W. James. A lot of organizations, local organizations like churches, have trained facilitators for this grief recovery program. And I believe it's
Mhm.
now international. So I encourage you to learn more about the Grief Recovery Handbook and the program that's associated with it. As I was told when I was in the program, you may think you're going there for one thing, but
Mhm.
as you complete the program and ultimately
Mhm.
complete the program, you have addressed so many other things
Other
that you may
things.
not know have been impacting you in your life. So I
Mhm.
encourage you to add that to your resource toolkit. And finally, you heard Miss Vance-Penchion talk about her job, an impressive career with one company, had a supportive manager that encouraged her to do what she needed to do and take the time she needed to get well. But I encourage you to find out more about the Family Medical Leave Act and how your job may implement that as far as the right that you have. It's a federal
Yes. That's
law,
a federal.
but
That's
how
right.
they implement it with their policies and procedures, and to know how that can help you if you have a serious medical condition, or if you have a loved one who has a serious medical condition and you need to take time off of work for appointments or otherwise. So
Right.
find out more about that. So, three resources: 988. The second one is the Grief Recovery Handbook. And third, the Family Medical Leave Act, and how your job implements that through their policies and procedures. Please find that out. And at this time, we are coming to a close, and I just want to have you share your final thoughts. A message that you want people to take away from you sharing your story. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being open and honest about it. I know it's not something that you had done before, but
No.
you now see the value. And I'm so grateful that you now are living for you and that you made your contract with you. But I feel like a part of this contract and this promise is your desire to spread the word and
That's
increase
right.
awareness and decrease stigma, just
That's
like Bibi Moore Campbell wanted to do during her advocacy. So, what do you want us to take away from your conversation with me today?
that there is those who want to help, that there is nothing wrong with you when you're having these mental health breakdowns, that it is, I know it is difficult, but
Mm,
it is so rewarding when you can step out from that space, from that darkness. And I really believe that the devil does that. He tries to whisper in your ear and say, don't say nothing. Don't tell
Mm,
anybody anything. Keep it to yourself. Stay in the dark. No, that's when you need to make a conscious effort to step out and get with someone, get with a friend, a family member, or 988 and say, listen, I am having a problem and
mm,
I need help. It's okay to need help. What happens is when we don't step out and get that help, that's when those bad things will begin to happen to us. So if I could encourage one person to say, to be honest with yourself, to
mm.
be honest with that family member, if you need assistance, if you need help, let's get it before it's too late.
Absolutely. That is a wonderful message. And again, I truly appreciate you joining me today.
Oh,
Thank you so much
thank
for
you.
just sharing and being so open and so vulnerable, because
Yes.
that is a difficult thing to do. And we may not feel like our story matters, but your story matters, you
Oh,
matter. And I truly appreciate you sharing with us today.
oh, thank you so much for having me. It is the first time I've ever done anything like this, but it was very worthwhile, and it was something I did enjoy
Well,
telling
you heard
the
it here today, audience. This was an exclusive interview. An exclusive message just for you. And as you tune in to this live or a recording later, thank you for listening. I hope that this episode was resourceful for you. If you have ideas of topics that you think should be covered by this program, please let me know. And if you have any guests that you would like to recommend, please feel free to share that as well. You can send me a DM on any of the social media platforms or my email address, cms@coreyempowers.com. I
Mhm.
want to take a moment to just thank those who have provided me with recommendations and referrals as we continue to build out this program and build out the scheduling. I look forward to adding those guests to our list of awesome guests, such as Miss Vance-Penchion that we've had today. So thank you again, and I look forward to staying in touch with you.
Thank you so much. You are doing such a fabulous job, lady. You
Well, thank you
really are.
so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for bringing it out to the light.
Thank you. And
Uh,
good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.